Welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast. This is Bryan, recording on Tuesday. And, man, we're almost close to NFL, but we're still grinding PGA. We're still here. Guys, what's going on?
I feel like this is like the captain going down with the ship almost type of thing, this PGA thing. Like, we're going to be here to the bitter end. Speaking of football, Pete, was this your first Saturday in forever that you had no college action? Like, how does that feel? It's like that feeling where, like, you forget to pack your bags, like I'm missing something in my routine, but, like, it's just like with your entire Saturday. How was it? How are you holding up?
You just pour salt straight in the wound.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, right off the bat, doesn't even hesitate. Just pour salt in the wound.
It's because we're worried about you. I mean, this is just, how are you holding up? I mean, do you have to actually enjoy your Saturdays in Colorado in September? Like, gosh, what else?
I know. It is nice. Unfortunately, I was at a bachelor party, so up in the mountains.
Oh, that's good methadone. I mean, like, I'm sure you're just like scraping for action otherwise. Like
I saw that when I was watching the games though, and seeing certain players go off, I was very tilted. Yeah, like very, very tilted. Honestly, it's still college football is my favorite sport by far, and or at least for DFS it was. And
Bryan, before I forget though, I think we need to commit to an Illinois UNC bet, like humiliation of some kind, on air right now because they play each other this week. I don't know what the standard is for humiliation bets. I always give the spread to make humiliation more of a 50-50 proposition. If you want to play prison rules and say, like, no, not allowed, why should I be, dragged into your mediocrity? I understand one way or another. But we'll have to think of that. Maybe we'll come up with something by the end of this podcast. But there's going to be something on camera. Someone's going to lose a bet on camera next week.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm a Carolina fan, so I'm used to heartbreak after watching them just blow it to Georgia on Saturday. But college football DFS is fun. That Louisville quarterback on like opening night had like 8 touchdowns in the first half, which is just
it's cake for breakfast. It's beautiful.
Just prime DFS. It's so fun. But we definitely have NFL coming up this week. We just launched our NFL tools last week. We have a lot of cool things going on. So tons of posts about that, about all the new stuff with NFL. So check that out if you want to get into NFL and see what we have to offer this year for that. But we'll stay on topic. We're talking PGA. That's what this podcast is, what you clicked into this podcast for. So we'll continue to talk golf here. So we're going to talk the BMW Championship, not to be confused with the BMW Championship on the Euro Tour. It's the exact same name. This one is the U.S. version, the PGA Tour version. So it's the PGA Championship. It takes place at the Crooked Stick Golf Club in Carmel, Indiana. It's a tournament that rotates sites. This is the second time that it's played here. It played last time in 2012. Rory took down that one. He obviously won last week, so he is probably going to be very, very popular again this week. Mickelson and Westwood tied for second back in 2012 here at Crooked Stick Golf Club. Colin, I will kick to you initially. BMW Championship in Indiana. What sort of course does this look like?
So the course fit here is a little bit weaker because, we only have 1 year of data kind of on our stream because it's a rotating. That being said, when it was here in 2012, it definitely rated out as a bomber's course, maybe about half of the course fit strength that you get out of normal, bomber type courses, but it's definitely there. I just think, it's a simplifying, just load up on bombers. You should be fine, but no need to go overboard because it's a weaker fit. Pete, how's it rate out for you? What do you know about Crooked Stick?
I don't know too much about it, but it does look relatively long, which I think is huge. I mean, if they're playing from the blacks, it's 75-16, which obviously they are. It's one of those courses where there's some really, really long par fives, there's some long par fours, there's some long par threes. So it totally makes sense that it's a bomber's course. There are a couple par fives that look very scoreable, look relatively easy, which is nice as well. So definitely load up on the bombers, and it's nice too with no cut. I shouldn't say it's nice, but if you're going to take the bombers and bombers angle with the guys who are a little bit more volatile, it's nice that there isn't a cut. But in general, I do prefer the cut events. Colin, what are your thoughts? I know you probably are a cut guy as well.
I instinctively I kind of like no cut because when you have a larger sample size and everything generally comes closer to projections than with a cut, there's less variance. I don't know if that's necessarily an edge anymore because it's the same for all people. So maybe if the ability to discern cut making is a skill, then you'd prefer cut events. So I don't know if any of us know like what the state of the game is and which one is a better source of edge. But yeah, at the very least, it's probably like less tilt from week to week. There's nothing that can just ruin your weekend and Friday saying like, why do we even bother? And it's just unnecessary stress and stuff like that. Randomly, Pete, I actually had a question for both of you guys because there's this angle that, maybe we're getting ahead of it a little bit, but it is kind of a course angle. Every time that a Pete Dye course shows up, everybody kind of talks about it like, oh, it's a Pete Dye course. You can kind of compare comparables to other courses that he designs. And I've always seen that kind of asserted, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody actually prove it. So I figure I'll start with just, the subjective angle. Is there something to courses by the same architect playing generally the same way? Is that something that like you look at, for example?
Oh, I absolutely look at it. And I think there are certain players that do better on different types of courses. And normally there are tendencies with the designers. I think Kuchar plays really well on Dye courses. Let's see here. I think that's the case.
That's actually a perfect example. Not to interrupt, but like, this is a Bombers course, and yet Kuchar plays well on Pete Dye courses. How do you reconcile those two that week for this week?
So that's when it's a problem. That's when it makes it a little bit trickier to decipher how to handle things. I'll have to look more into that, but it's definitely an angle I've looked at in the past, and where I would apply it is if we do think it's a Bombers course, and Bombers tend to do well on that type of designer. When you have something like this where let's assume Kuchar does well in these courses, which I'm pretty sure he does, and it doesn't line up as an accuracy course, that's when I start to get a little bit concerned and might not weight it as much.
Yeah, it always struck me as like something like course fit, you should be able to piece out organically, almost from like course fit stats and prior history and stuff like that. So I treat each course as independent. The fact that Pete Dye happens to design a bunch is kind of irrelevant for my process. I'm wondering if I'm missing something, and I'm always open to that. But
the other guy who does really well on Dye courses, I just looked up a stat, lowest stroke average on Dye course since 1983 with a minimum of 50 rounds. Bubba Watson with the second lowest average. So there's an angle. That does line up, which makes me happy. And I don't see Kuchar on this list, so maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah. No, my only, it's almost an academic point of caution, but like you can always just, find people who over or underachieve on certain conditions, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it'll hold up out a sample. That's the whole. I wrote about this earlier this year about how you can't play the specialist angle without testing to see if it is actually predictive out of sample. So that's my one kind of like blanket caution statement. At the very least, it's something worth looking into. In our we have what's our off season coming up? It's going to be all of 2 weeks or something like that. Good off season study, yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah, definitely interesting idea there. Sort of similar to that idea, just a question about the course. One stat or just note about the course that I found and wanted to get your thoughts on, guys. I saw that greens average only 4,500 square feet here, which is on the low end. Usually they're from my research, between 45 and 6,500 square feet is a green. So these are on the low end of greens. So Colin, I know this is something that you've talked about even just in recent weeks about how stats are more just entangled than we want to admit sometimes. And so, theoretically, if a small green, what does that mean? It means that, a guy who, can drive the ball a long ways and have a shorter approach into a smaller target is going to do better. Guys who can hit a smaller target do better. Also, potentially, if the greens are smaller, that means guys who have to lag putt or putt these long putts and are not good at that are less penalized. So small greens, is that sort of an example of where it's sort of hard to analyze exactly who would be benefited and who would be hurt by that sort of variable of a course?
It adds a wrinkle for sure, and I think like between that and grass type, I think those are the two most promising areas of like additional variables and kind of like doing a data-driven approach to course fit. The other one that kind of just popped in my head off the top of my head is the smaller the greens, the more likely you are to hit it around the green instead of on the green. And I think something like scrambling may be able to pick up that type of thing. I mean, it's indirect at best. I think, that I'm the first to admit that something conceptually like strokes gained around the green, one of the new stats that they're doing with it kind of on PGAtour.com, would probably fit well with a small greens type of approach. But yeah, that is at the very least, like as long as it is, in my mind, as long as it is a variable, you can do a study on it and kind of piece together like, okay, how does that affect things otherwise? But great, again, like the off-season list just keeps getting longer, so I'll have to put it on the to-do list. But great question.
Well, great question, Brian. And just to piggyback on the scrambling thing, I think it totally makes sense. Something that I'm going to wait and just a little bit more information on Pete Dye courses, looking up some strokes gained guys. Looks like since 2013-14, the highest guy in strokes gained is Jason Day. And again, we're not huge on strokes gained because it can be a little noisy. But Jason Day, or not noisy, but it can.
Incomplete. Yeah.
Exactly. So Jason Day up there, which makes sense, but Kuchar is number 2 since 2013-14 season. So that does play into effect. A lot of his courses, though, just from looking on some other stuff, do have, blind tee shots, a ton of hazards. It really does normally rely on accuracy, whereas this week it's not quite as much that way, at least off the tee. But the smaller greens do kind of create that same thing. And then scrambling, obviously, is going to be big. So I think we have to look at that, and that's something that I have weighted in my model currently.
Yeah, that's interesting. The small greens is definitely something that is interesting to me. Looking up the stat, back when Rory played here in 2012 and won, it looks like he had 2 eagles, 23 birdies. I mean, crushed the course, ended at 20 under at 268. But he was actually below average in strokes gained putting. So I just thought that it was interesting that a guy, who didn't really putt well all week and ended up winning the tournament in a pretty loaded field. So, I was reading some articles and some people attributed that to just the small greens. Pete, just subjectively, I mean, what would that mean to you as a small green? Would it mean that you just want to get as close as possible, therefore distance is really, really important?
I think that's true. I mean, it's hard because you're always trying to be accurate when you're close to the greens. I think the biggest thing is just the scrambling that I'm going to pay more attention to. I think that's the one thing we can take away, and certainly something that I'll have weighted in my models and the sliders. So that's something that I'm going to take quite a look at. And I think there's some guys who stand out at the top that are excellent scramblers that have distance. Finding those combination of guys is tougher to find, but the ones that do stick out are really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll get into those when we do our player analysis in just a second. But just a couple more things. Pete, we just talked about off air about the weather angle. It's supposed to rain and thunderstorm. There's like an 80% chance of rain. Just quickly for people who may not have listened before, what sort of weather angles do you take? Rain and thunderstorms aren't quite the same as wind. So, how do you approach that? If it's not supposed to be windy, but it's just supposed to be rain constantly, is that something that you approach it differently?
Rain's tough. It's the hardest one. I like when there's wind differentials. It's much easier to kind of attack that. Rain, you don't know when it's going to actually strike down. There's variables that can make the course technically easier. There's variables that can make it a lot harder. It's just one of those things that I have a lot harder time predicting. So I'll have to get more information on it, but certainly for an angle, I definitely like wind, temperature, things of that nature a little bit more. The softening of the course can make it longer, which makes it harder, but it can also make it easier to stick it on the greens. There's a lot of different angles that come into effect. One thing that I will do in GPPs is absolutely stack tee times to try to get one side that could be on the better side of variance with the rain, assuming that there's not an obvious way to go. I'll probably have exposure to both stacks of tee times.
Yeah, I think, and kind of looking at this week, I mean, there is, I think, a rain differential approach that, like, sometimes we're guessing at, like what the latest, it looks at this point, if current forecasts hold up, the morning shift will probably, or the Thursday AM will probably have less aggregate rain, like before they're teeing off or while they're teeing off. And if you believe that rain in general makes greens softer, I think that's and the nice thing about this being a Bombers course, there's that other factor of like, well, is do Bombers get a distance under rainy conditions on like an otherwise accuracy course? When they fight each other, like that's where it gets interesting. But since the Bombers course anyway, you don't feel bad about doubling down on Bombers. But if you think that rain makes the course overall easier because of softer greens, and they're just slower, then just pick the group that's going to get more water dumped or has a higher chance of water getting dumped on the greens. They'll have easier greens. That's kind of like my unfounded approach, I guess. That one needs not to sound, I'm already sounding like a broken horse with things to look into during the off season, but that one has been there. I think it seems like March. We've talked about this all year. And I think just having some like definitive answers for weather is probably at this point one of the greatest returns we could get on some more research.
Yeah, that's the question for me is what is the rain going to do to these greens? Because from my research and just reading about this course at the Crooked Stick Golf Club, it seems that the greens are really, really fast, or at least they were in 2012. So obviously rain would slow those up a little bit. I feel like on this podcast, we've sort of all agreed that putting is just random anyway. So rain isn't going to make it less random necessarily, but it's definitely might be an angle that the public takes in. I think all information is useful, sort of whether it's predictive or whether the public thinks it's predictive. It's still important for us to think about.
Yeah, well, on that being said, I agree that there is a lot of randomness in putting, but like I also just like remember when this thing was at last year at Conway Farms, there's like it rained overnight and the scores were like in the -20s and stuff like that. Like I think the like slower greens does lead to less randomness and like lower scoring. I think you can draw a straight line correlation on that end. So I wouldn't dismiss it too
especially
far.
with smaller greens, you would think.
Yeah, definitely.
So okay, well, definitely, yeah, we always encourage people to monitor weather as the week goes on, and definitely do so again this week. A lot of edges to be had just by checking that Wednesday night and putting your lineups together accordingly for sure. All right, let's get into our player analysis. So we're going to go through 3 different tiers by salary. So the first tier we're going to go over is going to be the value tier. It's going to be guys on DraftKings that are 6'9". It's going to be 6,900 and lower. And then we'll do a middle tier. It's going to be 7 to 8'9", and then the upper tier is going to be the top guys here. It's 9K and higher. So interesting tournament. It's like we said before, it's a tournament you have to qualify for because it's FedEx. It's a no cut event. There's only 70 golfers, so a small event like the Masters that only has 80, 90 golfers. This is even smaller than that. So interesting field this week. So. All right, let's start off. I think, Colin, it's your first time, or your time to go first.
Yeah, I think I'm up too. So value tier, we're going back to the classics. Number 1 and 2 with the bullet are Ryan Palmer and Harris English. And I know I seem to be mentioning them a lot, but Palmer's had a really good show lately. He's a bomber. It rates out well. I think he's number 1 for me. I know he can be kind of tilting because I've been on the wrong spots of him. Him and Brendan Steele, I not always seem to get the wrong side of. But I'm pretty happy that he's under 7K. And then English, it's not as good a course fit, but he just it's at the risk of sounding like a broken record, he just always seems to just put up good results and always seems to be solid value. The next guys under that are it's a little bit distorted almost because I after them I have Jason Duffner, Charles Howell, and Kevin Na, And like those are fine picks in my mind, but I think a lot of their value tends to come from the fact that they're solid cut makers. And so there's a little bit of that value that evaporates in a no-cut format. And so if you want to go dark horse value, the guys that I love will probably have zero ownership here are Sean O'Hare and Jamie Lovemark. Lovemark is hands down a course fit guy. Definitely rates up there in bomber. Sean O'Hare has a pretty good volume at this point. Like for what it's worth, is the highest volume of anybody here in the value here outside of like Jim Herman, but he's leagues above him there. I think O'Hare is probably, if you're looking for more like maybe safety and with a decent spate of recent results, I'd go Sean O'Hare for ownership. So I've already taken Palmer and English from Pete. I'm sure those are up there. We're pretty much on the same page as Palmer. So who did I miss that's popping for you?
I have no one. Palmer, I'm all in. Palmer is like definitely the play. Another thing, if you want to look at like birdie averages, Palmer's way up there, which in a no cut's great. It fits all the boxes. I'm going to be all in, and he'll probably
it's way too cheap
draw or something like that. But hopefully no one withdraws. The incentive is massive here at this tournament. The prize pool for 70 guys is huge. So I think in that regard, you're pretty safe. Kevin Na has baby swag. Just had I believe his first daughter. Baby swag.
You're big on that too, aren't you? Is it his first kid? Because like isn't there diminishing returns on? Okay, and is there diminishing returns on kids for swag? Like, have you looked into that?
The baby swag is massive. Okay. It's also massive in DFS as well. So if you're speculating on which DFS players are going to have good weeks, the guys who just became fathers normally a good indication. So that's definitely a narrative. I'm
actually rooting for baby swag. I want that one to turn. Like you know how much I feel about narratives by and large.
It makes so much sense.
It's like, yeah.
Narrative street makes sense with baby swag. You have more responsibility. It's no longer about you. You got to take care of the family. So baby swag, I think it gives people a new angle on life, a new sense of responsibility. So I'm on baby swag, but there's one guy I absolutely love in this range. Our normal bargain bin guy, Hudson Swafford, is another guy I think that you can consider at 7,100. I guess he doesn't really fit this exact range, but
you do have next pick. I'll let you get ahead of it. That's fine. So.
Yeah, I'm up on the next range. So I'll just transition to the next range because it's really Ryan Palmer and Kevin Na for me, and that's pretty much it. Certainly don't hate the calls that you made. But in this next range, we actually have a ton of guys who I think make a lot of sense. So we'll start with the cheap end of it. I really like Swafford. Actually, PGA Tour said the numbers back him up the most as like a pick this week. So didn't like seeing that, so raised the ownership. But he was great last week, and I think he's a really intriguing play in this spot. Don't hate Justin Thomas either, although he's not nearly as high as some of the other guys. In terms of players that I absolutely love in this range, I think Brooks Koepka is an elite option. I really like him. He's really high in birdie making. Definitely one of the bombers that you can take. And although he didn't play well last week, I think this is a really good spot for him. In addition to that, I love Bubba Watson in this spot at only 8,600. I think he's a really nice play. Had the stat earlier on how he's done really well PGA courses. Definitely has the distance and no cut. I think he'll do well even after missing the cut last week, which is a little bit disappointing, but might keep his ownership down.
He's 86. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he's a really good play. I think people will be attracted to Woodland, who had some great rounds outside of Saturday. I think he's fine. And, of course, I have to mention Griot. But, Colin, who's popping the most for you in this range? I do like Koepka. I think is my favorite play in this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's definitely my favorite for sure. Watson is right behind him. But just since Koepka is so much cheaper and a birdie maker, I agree with all of that. I see her coming from with Swafford. And I do think he is the best overall value in this tier. If you need to get a little bit more out of if it's pretty much only Palmer and maybe not Harris English being the value tier, then I could he's a good second option there. I have a couple people just over him in terms of pure value. I guess actually there's one guy, Kevin Kisner, who the last 3 weeks have just kind of been like, that's an overall type of play. It's not a course fit type of thing, but just like he continues to put up just good overall results. And it's just kind of a generally too cheap type of thing. The other fun name that I'm finally like, of course, why are we mentioning him here is Tony Finau, who, like, prototypical boomer bust. I think I don't know, like maybe his ownership will be higher. Like I get the feeling that people do love to play him just anyway, but I mean, he's your bomber. It's a no cut. He can't flame out in a no cut. I think it's worth at least a GPP flyer too. Maybe even roll with it in cash. I don't know. And then and just because I'm obligated to mention him, my JB Holmes Lycometer is closing back to like replacement level. It's not love for sure, but it's like, all right, I could understand that play. But yeah, I think Swafford's the best value. Koepka is the best overall in this range. And yeah, Finau is the only one that I think you missed that I could like be moderately enthusiastic about.
I like Finau and JB Holmes a lot as GPP plays. Definitely with you there. JB makes a ton of birdies, and with the distance angle, no cut, love that. And Finau, he actually came through for me last week with a decent amount of birdies. So gotta like that with the Bombers. Definitely two guys that I think are great GPP plays.
I'm just happy that that I'm basically fading Brandon Steele on this one. He doesn't jump for me.
He's out.
Math is work. I mean, it's fine, but it's just like that's a replacement level pick to me. He's not jumping because he's way too expensive this time. He jumped to 7,400, so not in my usual bargain bin spot where I like him.
One guy I wanted to ask you about, and we sort of forgot to. We usually start our podcast with what did we learn last week. So, Pete, I'll give you a chance on this one just because it's a good segue. Paul Casey, we were really high on him last week, and he came through for us.
Not you. I can't take.
I was high on him. Colin was not. I'll forget about that one. 65s was a big favorite to win it, and then just blew up on Sunday, but. Yeah, I mean, Colin, what do you think? I mean, I've been buying the short-term green regulation stat quite a bit, and he just jumped off the charts. Griot and Stenson have also been two guys that have just crushed that stat for a lot of this year, and then we've seen success after it. So you buying that? Are you worried that you missed something with Casey there, or what are you?
Absolutely. I mean, only because I think this is probably the weekend the most where I felt personally crushed by Pete, both between like Rory and Paul Casey is like the Babe Ruth called shots to left field. So it's like, yeah, I have to okay, like what am I missing type of here. I'm getting Rory was
Rory I was really high on. I thought you were pretty high on him.
Yeah, I was pretty on him, but like I still would take Jason Day in like a heads up.
I liked Rory more last week.
Yeah, so like it was more. I think like you probably would have taken Day if an even money bet like in a heads up.
It would have been really close. With they would have been the same price. I thought it was really close. It was just a huge discount on Rory.
Yeah, so like I think that was more of a discount thing.
Right.
Yeah, with Paul Casey. The recent GIR thing, I guess I only didn't look at it because in theory that's a kind of be like I thought I had it priced in pretty well as far as like, overall player stats, but like maybe there's something specific to that or maybe it's non-linear. I know we kind of have a more basic model for course fit, but I'm wondering if there's something where like it gets that high, then okay, maybe that's more stable, more predictive, more like I got to go back and like maybe course fit needs a little bit more horsepower in the hood. I can pick. I mean the general descriptions for course fit, I think we're doing fine. I don't think we've disagreed like maybe once all year as far as like do we think it's the same type?
Oh yeah, and we've been on the same page. Just Casey was a specific situation where he was by far number one in my model. Continue to be with a lot of models that I made. I always do have green regulation, at least a short term, rated really high. And actually, I think some other golf services have ripped on subtly, not directly, but ripped on the green regulation thing. So I was happy to see it come to fruition. And one other thing with that, Ryan Palmer, very, very high recent GIR, which
you're all in, Pete.
I'm in on Palmer.
Yeah, I usually don't need much convincing week to week, but it's good to know. Yeah, it'll definitely be something I take a long, hard look at just because like that was just the most.
Still number one right now.
That I've gotten from your picks in a while. It's just like, all right, and now I have to take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, last week I think he had lowered his percentage, but going into the week he was like 79 point something percent. There's a lot of reasons to like him too, just from a couple stats, a couple subjective things. People were saying all the right things about what he was doing, how he looked, his ball striking, etc. But that was interesting that it played out that way. And we do have quite a few guys with that stat that we're going to talk about here in the high range that I think are great plays as well. So interesting for sure. Do you want to take it away on the high-end range, Colin?
Yeah, let's go for it. All right. So who do we have in the high range here? I think it's interesting that it is interesting for sure that Rory is priced above Jason Day at this point, and I think that is purely a course history type of thing. So he won it in Crooked Stick last time. Jason Day does not have course history here. And that's really we're pretty close at this point as far as who do you take straight, heads up. So maybe this is where you and I disagree. I still have Jason Day as the number one overall. That's not nearly as dramatic as it was last time. But even the fact that he has zero course history, and they have basically identical course fits, as just kind of it's almost defaults to it's still Jason freaking Day. I think he's still the overall number one golfer in the world, just has way longer term track record. As far as value in this range, if you want to go a little bit mid-range, Matsuyama is actually rating really well right now for me. And he's had I know there are lingering injury concerns, I don't think there's any definitive answer as far as when are people back or not? Is he over it? But I like that. I think it's decent value. Followed closely by Patrick Reed, who's leading the FedEx Cup.
Gosh, dang.
And I don't know, at the very least, I want that. I want to know what that. He doesn't jump to me. Honestly, I probably wouldn't. I'd still try to stack I don't know, Jason and Dustin Johnson or something like that, and fill out the rest of value. So I don't think I'm going to be rostering Reed a lot. So if you want to have that one, and you can say all right, so why is Reed jumping at you, and how much does the fact that he's currently leading in the playoff standings affect that from a subjective angle? That's my question to you.
Okay, well, first of all, you just named every player that I was going to name yet again. This show has just been we're on 100% the same page here.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's all right, I'll come back to your question in a second, but let's talk Rory just real quick. Last week was a perfect time to buy Rory. Everyone was, hating on him with the putter, and now everyone and their mother is on Rory. I looked at PGA.com, expert picks, and all of them had Rory. He's now the most expensive, and it's only really off one tournament. So recency bias is a massive thing in sport.
Not only one, remember, he did win this, so there was a course history.
No, I know. So you have both things. The course history angle definitely is legit. And if the one other thing that's in Rory's favor is, going to a new putter. Actually going away from the Nike putter, going to a Scotty Cameron, which is known as the best putting brand in golf, that can, in my opinion, give more confidence, and a lot of things can really change for a golfer on the greens with a new situation. I think Rory needed that more than anything. Now he has the confidence. He looked like a totally different player on the greens last week. Not saying it's sustainable by any means, but it's something that I can buy into from the subjective side, especially knowing that there's so much variance already. I think I can buy into it just a little bit that he could be better going forward with that putter. I do think Day is probably a better play at this point, given that he's cheaper, especially in tournaments, because everyone's going to be on Rory. The other thing that's really heavy in Day's favor, and also really heavy in Reed's favor, is scrambling. Day is one of the best scramblers on tour. I think that's going to really play big here. So I really love Day at this price. That's another reason I love Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed is a top 10 machine, elite scrambler. Doesn't have the distance that some of these other guys have, but still has plenty, in my opinion, to do what he needs to do at this course. So I like him quite a bit. And then Matsuyama might be one of my favorite players overall. Someone I'll probably have on quite a few lineups in both cash and tournaments. And there's a lot of reasons to like him. He's hitting a ton of greens in his recent form. He makes a ton of birdies relatively. I think he's fourth or fifth. Let me pull this up here. Yeah, right now he's tied for fifth in terms of weighted birdie average with Jason Day and Brooks Koepka. So I think that's another reason with this structure to really go heavy on Matsuyama. So he's a guy that I'm going to be on, and that's really the same analysis you just gave, Colin. So we're on the same guys, which means hopefully they pan out, because I don't see myself deviating too much in this tier. Dustin Johnson's the guy I probably won't have too much of, that it will be scary to fade just because he's played so well throughout this year, although he's tapered off a little bit until last week. But, I think it's pretty easy to pick the top tier guys. I think I'm probably going to have a little bit more day than Rory, which will be different in the field, and that is scary, I guess. But Matsuyama and Reed will be my other core expensive guys.
The funny thing about DJ is that there's this narrative that he sort of tapered off. But like, if you just take away his PGA Championship miscut, he really hasn't. I mean, he won those back-to-back events. Then he had a 9th place finish or 2nd place finish. He missed the cut at PGA, but then he got 18th at the Barclays and then 8th last week. So it's really just 1 week where he finished even close to being outside of the top 20 at a tournament.
Right. I forgot a guy who I think is also right there. He's second in my model. And there might be lineups where I just fade Day and McIlroy and just start with Adam Scott. I think Scott's the other guy. So
I mean, he was right there between Reed.
Exactly. So I think Scott and Reed are very similar. I probably actually lean Scott even still. The one thing that makes me hesitant on that is how good of a scrambler Reed is. So depending on how much you're going to buy that angle, you can go with Reed over Scott. But Scott's current form is fantastic. And he's a guy that just, if he can get the putting going at all, he's just going to destroy, because his ball striking is probably the best in the game right now. Hit 79% of greens last week at Deutsche Bank. He's definitely finding that form he had in the early part of the year on that Florida swing. So Scott's another really great play at the top tier.
Yeah, well, what about those point standings? You didn't answer my question.
I don't know about the point standings. I'm not going to buy too much into that subjective angle. I think all these guys are going out there trying to play their best. They have all the incentive in the world for a variety of reasons. Money being one of the huge ones. I mean, this purse this week, I think it's like 8 million some. 8.5 million purse for 70 golfers.
Oof.
It's going to be a similar type thing next week, where it's going to be a huge purse for 30 golfers. So all these guys want to keep playing. That's why they're really into this. Obviously, they want to win a FedEx Cup, but there's a massive financial incentive during these weeks. So, we'll see. I think you have to definitely focus in on a core here. Trying to spread yourself out too thin in tournaments is definitely a mistake at a no cut, in my opinion. Definitely stick to your core and go for it.
Pete, I had a random question for you, the way you're talking about Rory's putter. And this is like, it's almost like this is kind of annoyingly devil's advocate type of thing. But I know precious little about equipment selection, especially at the highest levels. All I know is beyond you cannot buy the clubs that they have for sale. That's the wonderful myth that perpetuates like all merchandise sales for like the weekend hackers like me. But the simple question I have, I've never heard the angle of the best putter on tour can give you new confidence. Why they're all millionaires like at the top 30 or whatever? Why doesn't everybody just buy that putter? You make it sound like putting is solved from a mechanic.
No, it's definitely not solved, but I think Scotty Cameron is definitely known as like the best putter on tour. I think a lot of amateurs also believe that. They're expensive. They have these custom things that they do, and the one thing that, for Rory specifically, he didn't have an option to play a putter outside of a Nike putter. So Nike,
that I would believe. Okay,
they're out of the equipment game for a reason at this point, and he was confined to that. So I think that it can help. But I think more my point is, and this sounds awful when we're trying to be data driven, but just from a subjective angle, just the change for Rory when he was so bad at putting. I mean, all the stats going back. He's been elite up there with everyone in terms of ball striking, total driving, all those things. It's just the putter has been such a bugaboo. Any change, anything to get his psyche a little bit different on the greens, I think has to be a good thing. And I do think actually going from a Nike putter to a Scotty Cameron putter might actually just be slightly better. So I think it's something that you have to buy into just a little bit, because putting – again, there's so much variance in it, but any little bit of confidence or change in psyche when it's something that's just killing a player, I think is a good thing.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, the Adam Scott, just want to provide some data on that. He has the second best recent adjusted round score of the field, just below Jason Day, and he has, I believe, Yeah, he's the fourth best scrambling mark. So you're talking about the difference between him and Reed. He actually has a better recent scrambling percentage than Patrick Reed in the short term. And quick game for you. Who has let's see, who has the third best recent adjusted round score? So sort of the third best golfer lately in terms of that mark, and also the second best scrambling mark. Can anyone guess?
I would go Reed. I'd get Reed in a vacuum. Yeah.
Ryan Moore, so I'd guess.
Jordan Spieth.
Ooh.
Oh, that is such a great question. It's almost like Voldemort territory in this podcast. We just never bring him up.
No, which is why I set it up that way, so for you to have positive thoughts in your mind about a golfer, say, "Oh, that's intriguing," and then to drop the Jordan Spieth name on you.
It's almost like you do this for a living, Bryan.
He is ranking high in my model that I've currently constructed, one ahead of Matsuyama. Man, I don't know. Spieth, you do get a decent discount, but I don't know. I would love to take Adam Scott over Spieth for me, and you get $300 savings.
Yeah, I think it's close for me too. I just Scott has a little bit more value.
The ownership of Spieth is just never low. Outside of
that's the other X factor. It's just his ownership is inelastic to things like science. Yeah.
One other just ownership point too, and I could definitely see this playing out this week. And there were other factors, but the PGA Championship, Rory was 40 or 50% owned in the Thunderdome, and Jason Day was 6%. And there's reasons for that. Jason Day, got there late, said he was a mess, barely got to practice, was sick. I mean, his wife was sick. There's all these things going on, but the ownership definitely shifted that way, and a ton of these top guys absolutely love Rory. So it's a tough thing to do, but Jason Day could really be a much better tournament play this week than Rory, in my opinion.
Okay. Sounds good. Any last thoughts?
We got to pick winners. We got to figure out.
Any last thoughts before we pick winners? I know Brian's not going to forget that.
No, of course.
Ooh, did I didn't have Casey last week. Didn't you have Casey, Brian?
Yeah, I did.
That's so brutal.
And then,
earlier, I was like, damn.
And then Rory, and then Rory let me down at the last day. Yeah. And I even dipped down low into the salary tier to pick Casey. Took a risk.
Yeah, I know. Have we done if we did our Oregon Trail score multiplier bonus or whatever, then you would have been insurmountable for that leaderboard.
True.
Let's pick two golfers here, guys. Let's dive into this because I think we covered everything.
Okay, so we get a snake. Okay, so we're snake drafting it then, right?
Let's snake draft it. So off the bat, you can take any golfer. Okay. And then your second golfer, which should be on the way back. Do you want to make it 8K or less, or what? How do you guys want to do it? 9K or less.
I know. Okay. So first one is any golfer, and then we do our value pick.
Yeah, that way we can actually get a winner here. We're only going to get two more chances. We need to get this three-way tie.
I can't stand ties because then we're going to have to do over under Ryder Cup hole totals, and that's just going to be miserable. I say we keep it let's do snake draft under 9K.
And we can't pick off the bat.
You want your chalk? All right, that's fine.
Let's go chalk just so we have more likelihood of the winner.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, so who wants first pick?
I want third pick here.
Yeah, everyone wants third pick.
Yeah.
The same guy on the way back.
Fine, I'll take first. That's fine. I'll go boring chalk Jason Day, number one.
Okay. All right, I'll go second, Brian. I'll leave you the gem pick. So the first pick I'm going to take is Rory.
Okay.
I know you're already. Gosh dang it.
So I have to go a stud and then under 9.
Yeah, you can take anyone you want. Oh, you don't have to go. You can just pick anybody available as your stud. And then there's two picks I think you should go here for sure.
Yeah, so this is tough. I mean, obviously choosing between DJ and Scott is the tough call. I'm gonna go DJ. I'll go DJ.
And Fulton.
Over Scott. And then, of course, you got to go Bubba.
Oh, thank goodness you saved me, my guy.
Oh, of course.
I'm taking Koepka.
I already know. I didn't even hear it, but I just assumed you picked Koepka.
I knew I wanted Koepka, and I think Scott versus DJ was close. I like Scott and Koepka quite a bit, but
all right. Are you ready for my? You just tilted me so much. Are you ready for my heel pick, Ricky Fowler?
Oh my gosh, you're taking.
That's how tilted I am right now.
He's high in my model, to be honest.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about him, and yet this is just like I don't think I ever get to pick him under 9K. So it's just like just for troll factor, like I have to do it.
I forgot you
bombing the ball. Ricky's driving distance is higher than anybody, I think, or right there. He has the same driving distance as a lot of guys, or maybe no, he's right behind Bubba, I guess, by 0.3 yards and Dustin. But
this is gonna be a miserable weekend because like I'm so conflicted in my rooting interest now, but it's just I can't do it.
I don't hate Fowler this week, to be honest.
I know he's high
too.
I don't like it either, but like I'm almost like giving up on this pick now that Koepka's gone, just because it's such a lock in my mind.
Fowler's recent driving distance right below Finau and Rory. Man, I misplayed that. I completely forgot that you preferred Koepka over Bubba.
Oh, I think Koepka's the nuts this week.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I agree.
More for drive, but for winning it, maybe Bubba has similar equity. I think we can just look at the odds too, but just
Bubba is slightly higher in odds.
Yeah. But in terms of DraftKings scoring, I think it's Koepka. Koepka just makes so many birdies. Although the one thing, Watson doesn't make quite as many birdies, but he is an eagle maker, obviously. So is Koepka. So
yeah,
I love Koepka this week for DraftKings.
Are we picking the DraftKings high?
No, we're picking the winner of the tournament.
No.
Okay.
So it's just a bias on my end. I'm more thinking about DraftKings scoring, I guess. But
you should try to play PGA DFS. It's pretty fun.
It is fun. I like it.
Yeah.
I should try. I should give it a shot, I should say.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you might have a knack for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good. We did not get a chance to get to the Euro Tour, but we did just post an article today from one of our writers, Kelly McCann. He broke down the Euro events. And Colin has promised me off air to send a tweet or two about the Euro event. So
yeah, I'll cover all of the Euro stuff we missed last year here. We'll get that before Wednesday Night Lock. And do my Euro minute over the internet this time.
Yeah, Euro minute over the internet. Sounds great. Okay, well, we will end it there. Thanks for listening as always. Good luck this week and enjoy football this weekend.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope that you use the new NFL tools to make millionaires, even if it dethrones PGA. Are we the only millionaire maker service on all of FantasyLabs so far? Does anyone else?
I think some other people have gotten claims on it, but I think we got the first.
Well, no, yeah, among FantasyLabs.
Among fans of the sports.
Yeah.
Fans of sports.
Internally, I think we're one of the only millionaire makers. And as much as I would, miss that title, it's always great when our customers do well. So go get them, guys.
There was a football guy who was a subscriber last year who I think got second in the Million Maker and lost by 0.1 point because of a last second play.
Oh, is that like a kneel down type of thing?
I mean, he still ended up winning a lot of money, but yeah. So, but golf still holds it, number one.
Yep. All right.
Good luck. Enjoy PGA. Enjoy NFL, and we'll talk to you guys a little bit later.